Good morning, folks, and welcome. We'll give people a minute just to kind of trickle in. We'll start, try to start right at 11 to utilize the full hour. So thanks for joining us today. All right, it is 11 o'clock, so let's get started. Next slide, please. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 2022 Better Buildings webinar, summer webinar series. So we're dedicated to bringing you the latest, actionable insights from leading industry experts. This is an annual series, and it's a chance to explore topics, technologies, and trends that affect your organization, as well as efforts to accelerate energy efficiency adoption. So before we dive in, there are a few housekeeping points I want to cover. Please note today's webinar will be recorded. It'll be archived on the Better Building Solutions Center. And so we'll follow up with today's recording, slides, and transcript as soon as possible afterwards. And next, all of you, the attendees, are in listen-only mode. So your microphones are muted. If you experience any AV issues through the webinar, just let us know. Send us a message in the Q&A box on the bottom of the Zoom panel, and someone will try to help you figure that out. Next slide, please. So my name is Clifton Yin. I am your moderator. I work for a company called ICF. I'm a contractor that supports the Better Plants program. Better Plants is basically the industrial component of the Better Buildings program. Next slide, please. So if you've been with us before, you've probably used Slido.com before. It's a great interactive platform for Q&A, polling, and feedback. And so let's try to test it out right now. Please go to Slido.com on your phone or on a new browser on your computer, and just enter the DOE in the hashtag entry form. It can be uppercase, lowercase, it doesn't matter. And we're going to try out a few polls right now so you can kind of get used to Slido. And then throughout the webinar, basically, if you want to ask our panelists a question, submit it through Slido, and then at the end of the webinar, we'll be answering the questions. So let's take a minute, go to slido.com, put in hashtag DOE. I'll also know it's kind of neat. You can thumbs up the questions that you like from other people, and then those will kind of naturally go up to the top of the list. So when we're answering questions at the end, I'll probably pick from the most popular questions. So Slido poll. So let's get started with a few polls. Let's see. Okay. Yep, great. Let's go into the results, please. For the next. No, I actually have not looked at the Slido myself. Let me go to slido.com. Okay, let's do the first poll. Right, so what sector best describes your organization? We want to get a sense of where you folks are coming from. You can also scan the QR code with your phone. That's strange, as there are no responses. Well, I put my answer in. I don't know why it's not showing up. That's a bit weird. I think we might be having a technical difficulty here. It's very strange. Slido is actually very, straightforward. I don't know why it's not working. I think I'm getting some comments that people have been voting, but the results are not showing up. That's fine. I think we can should we come back to it or move on? Let's give our technical folks a minute, I think. All right, let's move on. Next slide, please. Great. So yeah, we have a great lineup of speakers today, focusing on renewables on industrial facilities. But obviously, there's a lot of overlap between industrial and non-industrial when we're talking about renewables. So there will be lessons learned for everybody, even if you're from a manufacturing background or not. So three great speakers. The first is Dr. Ahmad Abbas. He's a researcher at Oak Ridge National Lab and a technical account manager with the Better Plants program. As part of Better Plants, he supports manufacturers with technical assistance, energy assessments, training, and energy management guidance. Dr. Abbas holds a PhD in engineering from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee with focus on energy efficiency and renewable energy. Our second speaker, Luis Quinones, is a certified energy manager and GRI certified sustainability professional. He has 7 years of experience with Bendix commercial vehicle systems in various health, safety, and environmental roles. Luis began in Mexico operations, spent 2 years in the Huntington facilities, and in the last 2 years has worked in the corporate sustainability engineer role. Luis manages the corporate reporting of various sustainability-related disclosures by the company, including GRI reporting and TCFD. And our third speaker is Barry Wenskowitz. He's been employed by the Narragansett Bay Commission since 1998, which is a water wastewater utility in Rhode Island. I'm pretty sure it's Rhode Island. He currently works as an engineer in the technical analysis and compliance section of the Environmental Science and Compliance Division. He previously worked for environmental consultants in Rhode Island and Massachusetts. He received his Bachelor of Science degree in chemical engineering from the University of Rhode Island in 1987. And he received his Master's of Science degree in chemical engineering from the URI in 2011. So I think the polls are back. Let's go back to the polls and see how it looks. Wonderful, great. Thanks to our technical support staff for figuring that out. So yeah, not surprising, most people are from industrial, but I'm happy to see that we have a smattering of other folks from other sectors. This is great. Next poll, please. Great. Yeah, so we want to get a sense, is your organization implementing on-site renewables? Yes, shot to the top, which is not surprising. Plan to in the future. No, well, we're hoping the no's will decrease after today, that some of these lessons can be implemented, and we'll show you that it's not that hard. There are many options to do it, many opportunities for financing, and we'll hear 2 case studies from Luis and Barry. Let's give it another second or so. I am happy to see yes, so high. That's great. All right, let's go to the next poll, please. Right, so this is actually a word cloud. This is not a multiple choice. We want to get a sense, what are your barriers that you're facing when implementing renewable energy? What's holding you back? What's making things difficult? We're going to try to answer some of your questions today and figure out try to get you over the hump and cross these barriers. Not surprising. Money talks, funding, costs. A lot of these are really the same thing: money, cost, funding, payback, financing. But education is a big one too. Yeah, it's important. There's a lot of different ones. Look at that: supply chain, executive buy-in. Yeah. Laws. Well, VPA risks. This is very interesting. Funding cleanup goals. Interesting. Supply chain, physical space. Okay. Yeah. Economics, capital, scale, resources to get it done. Poor utility support. Okay. Public perception. That's an interesting one. Roof repair, permitting, legislator. Okay, that's unfortunate. I see that 6 people are still typing, so we'll give people a minute. Structural challenges, life cycle cost, land, yeah. Poorly designed programs, okay. Interconnection, not enough potential. All right, I kind of disagree with that one. I think there's potential. Staffing. Okay, well, people can actually still fill this out as we go along. Let's I think move on. I believe we're just going to hop after this. We'll hop right into Ahmad's presentation. So with that, Ahmad, please kick it off.
So thank you, Clifton, and thank you everyone for being here. And let's just get started here. So the Better Plants program partners have long known that energy efficiency is an important tool to strengthen the U.S. manufacturing competitiveness. But efficiency alone is insufficient to reduce the demand on fossil fuel and their associated emissions. So to accomplish these goals, the industrial sector may need to invest in renewable energy. Next slide, please. I would assume many of you may heard of renewable energy technologies like solar and wind energy, and you may know how most of these technologies work. Installing a solar photovoltaic system or wind turbine on site is not the only way for organizations to implement renewable energy. Another option that you might do is directly procure renewable electricity from independent power producers or through your utility. So for today's webinar, I would like to focus on different renewable electricity supply options like power purchase agreements, unbundled bricks, renewable energy certificates, and utility green tariffs. To let you know which option may be available for your organization at the same time align with your goals. Next slide, please. Before jumping into renewable electricity supply options, it's very important for us to understand electricity markets, as these are highly diverse, to help you develop a plan that will make sure your company gets the right renewable energy solution. So excuse me for that, but I would like to start with a map to the right here. In general, states may be either regulated or deregulated, except a few exceptions where you will see some states with both regulated and deregulated markets based on the sector. So let's start with the regulated electricity markets, where in these markets, customers can choose who generates their power, and usually they are bound to the utility in that area. And as you can see in the map, regulated markets dominate most of the Southeast, Northwest, and much of the West. On the other hand, in the deregulated electricity markets, market participants other than utility companies own power plants and transmission lines. In this case, independent power producers or generators sell electricity into a wholesale market, as you can see in the map here to the left. And then retail energy suppliers can purchase this electricity to sell it to other customers. So wholesale electric power markets are managed by independent system operators, ISO, or regional transmission organizations, RTOs, and both of these are managed by the ISO RTO Council. Overall, there are 9 regional markets. Six of them are in the United States and 2 in Canada, and there is 1 market that is shared between both countries. Next slide, please. So renewable electricity supply options are divided by either retail or specific or project-specific supply, as you can see here in the figure. Examples of retail supply is unbundled bricks and utility green power products, while if we talk, for example, power purchase agreements, PPAs, and utility green tariffs, these are examples of project-specific options. If we look here for the chart to the right, as you can see, that chart is indicating sales percentage for each option as of the end of 2020. We can see that the unbundled RICS option is the most common option here, which is taking 45%, followed by PPAs and then competitive green power. Next slide, please. So starting with the first one here, the renewable energy certificate, and to define that, there are 2 products from any renewable energy projects. The first one is energy. The second one is RECs, renewable energy certificates. Each REC represent the environmental benefits of 1 megawatt hour of renewable energy. An energy stream is considered renewable or green only if the consumer owned the associated rig. So when an amount of renewable electricity is purchased along with the RECs associated with that amount, these RECs known as bundled RECs. However, if a company wants to choose to purchase only the environmental benefits of renewable energy through an unbundled REC without the associated energy stream, then that's called unbundled RECs. So RECs are different than carbon offsets, which carbon offsets usually represent 1 metric ton of avoided emission. RECs can also reduce companies' Scope 2 carbon emissions. Next slide, please. So the other option here is PPAs, power purchase agreements. And PPAs are contracts between a power producer or third-party developer and an energy consumer. So the consumer agrees to purchase the electricity and the associated RECs from a power generation project at a set price that is usually below the market cost. The PPA rate will typically rise over time to cover increased O&M costs, increase in retail electric cost, and reduced efficiency of the generation equipment. So the terms for the PPA contracts is usually 10 to 15 years. And there are two main types of power purchase agreements. The first one is physical PPAs, the other one called virtual PPAs or financial PPAs. And their structure indicates how energy is delivered and how emission or energy savings are counted. In VPPAs, in the financial power purchase agreement, the energy generated from a renewable energy project is delivered to the grid, while RECs are given to the consumer or the manufacturing facility. Both physical PPAs and virtual PPAs have restrictions on locations for facilities and generation sites. So renewable energy from a PPA must be delivered to consumers in a deregulated energy market through one of the 7 independent grid operators that I presented earlier in my slides. And sites for energy generation are then limited to regions in wholesale electric power market. Since physical PPAs also require a facility to purchase energy from an entity other than their utility, they are suitable only for deregulated markets. While for the virtual PPAs, and since their energy is delivered to the grid, facilities entering into the agreement have virtually no location constraints. Next slide, please. Going to the part of a green power or a green tariffs. And here we have like 3 different options. Starting with the first one, competitive green power products. These are products offering available to customers in competitive retail electricity markets or in the deregulated market, just to make that simple, to procure bundled electricity and RECs from a competitive electricity supplier, who is usually not their utility. Participating customers pay for their renewable electricity via their utility, and then the utility will pass that payment to the power generator. Participating customers usually pay per kilowatt hour premium through an additional line item that will be added on their electricity bill. Jumping to number 2 here, which is utility green power products. So for that option, it's almost the same as the previous one, except that it's available in regulated market through the utility. And if we need to look for the utility green tariffs, so it's an optional program also in regulated electricity markets that allow larger commercial and industrial customers to buy bundled renewable electricity from a specific project through a special utility tariff rate. Both utility green tariff and utility green power products are offered by utilities to customer and regulated markets. The 2 options are slightly different in their purchasing process. and to who both of these options are available to, the term of contract, and the level of a project specificity. Next slide, please. So the latest two options here we have is what we call the community choice aggregations, or CCAs, and shared renewables. Starting with mentioning that both of these options do not rely whether the state is regulated or deregulated. Instead, it's available based on a state-by-state authorization or legislation. So for CCAs, it's an attractive option for communities that want more local control over their electricity sources, more green power than is offered by their default utility, usually with lower electricity prices. So for the shared renewables, it's usually known also as community solar, where it allows multiple customers to buy, lease, or subscribe to a portion of a shared green power system. And as of now, it's available in 20 states. For the map here, it's showing where the CCAs are currently available and where it might be available in the future. Next slide, please. The table here is just a summary for the options that I described earlier, but it's showing here the characteristic for each of these options. I will leave this up for you to view, since you will be able to access the slides after this webinar. Next slide, please. So jumping to the tools and resources here, and the first tool that we have is the EPA Green Power Supply Options Screening Tool. This tool is like a survey, an Excel-based tool that help organizations identify which supply options is the best available for them based on a couple of questions. While for the rest of the tools here, we have System Advisor Model, Reopt, PV Watts, and the economic site analysis. For all of these soft tools, it's more has focus on evaluating the performance of an on-site renewable energy system, technically and economically. For both System Advisor Model and Reopt, these are like more detailed software. However, for PV Watts and the ESA, these are more like online calculators and easier to use. Next slide, please. Besides the tools that I've just described, we also have the Better Buildings Renewable Energy Resource Hub, where you will find a lot of other helpful resources, and the link here is at the bottom of this slide. Other programs and platforms that you might find helpful in terms of renewables. The first one is the EPA Green Power Partnership, and we also have CEPA, the Clean Energy Buyer Association, the database of state incentives for renewables efficiency, and RE100. The link for all of these is available here in the slides, where you will be able to access it after the webinar. Next slide, please. So last but not least, I would like to highlight the Renewable Energy Guidance Document, Renewable Energy for Industry, that the DOE just announced yesterday. And we have the main document that is covering the state of renewable energy market, organization benefits of implementing renewables, and options to procure renewable electricity, as well as tools and resources for the industrial sector. On the other hand, for the supplemental document, that document covers a more technical background of different renewable energy technologies, solar, wind, hydro, etc. The document also covers other topics like fuel cells, microgrids, and hybrid systems. I have here my email and my team's email contact information. Please feel free to reach out to us at any time. And thank you all for your attendance.
Yeah, that was a really comprehensive, great overview of all the options and lots of resources. I think we were off by a slide at the start, but no worries, everyone. We'll share all the slides typically within a week. There's also several resource documents that Ahmad referenced. I think I'll probably try to plop the links into the chat so folks can directly access those great 2 documents at the end. But next up we have Luis. Looking forward to hearing from your presentation. Please take it away.
Thank you, Cliff. My name is Luis Quinones, work for Bendix Commercial Vehicle Systems, and we're going to talk a little bit about our solar photovoltaic system that is just coming to its first year anniversary. And we have had pretty good experience with it. So can we go to the next slide, please? So this one is located in Huntington, Indiana. We do have a big manufacturing site with 4 sites and around 560 employees. So can we go to the next one, please? Just a small overview of the company. We are a member of the Quinones group. What we do is we develop and supply leading edge active safety technologies, energy management solutions, and air brake charging and control systems and components under the Bendix brand for medium and heavy duty trucks, tractors, trailer, buses, and other commercial vehicles throughout North America. We are an industry pioneer employing more than 4,100 people. Bendix and its wholly owned subsidiary are a shepherd company. It's driven to deliver the best solutions for improved vehicle safety, performance, and overall operating costs. For the manufacturing footprint, we do have facilities located in Bowling Green, Kentucky, Hanover, Pennsylvania, Withville, Virginia, and a couple of operations in Lebanon, Tennessee, and Mexico. So yeah, can we go to the next one, please? So specifically talking about the Bendix Huntington Manufacturing Campus, it achieved some pretty nice milestones in growth and performance and corporate sustainability in the recent years. It was first opened in 1980. Now it has 4 facilities with 564 employees, and it's basically leading the way for the self-produced renewable electricity with the first solar photovoltaic system that was built for the North America operation. We're a pretty well-established member of the Huntington community, and we're pretty committed to the state of Indiana. And as I mentioned before, we were awarded with the first solar photovoltaic system in North America for the Quinones AG portfolio. What made it so nice for us is that the conditions of the site and the availability of the very well located piece of real estate just adjacent to our main Huntington site, it aligned perfectly with the company's climate strategy goals. In detail, we do have the solar system with 2,612 ground-mounted panels. It's designed to produce indirect current 1,260 kilowatt hours, and after the inverter process, it produces it's designed to produce 1,000 kilowatt hours. On a yearly basis, we're expecting 1,500,000 kilowatt hours. This is enough to cover 30% of the demand of our Huntington Plant 1. Can we go to the next one, please? We do have a pretty ambitious goal of halving our CO2 emissions by 2030. We mostly planning on doing this via a 3-lever approach that encompasses the climate strategy, which is based on the UN's SDG goals, specifically number 13, which is climate action. We are aligned with the Science Based Targets Initiative, and further our commitment with the partnership that we have with the DOE via the Better Plants program, the Climate Challenge, and also some other partnerships that we have, like the EPA Green Power partnerships. What we're trying to do is utilizing the 3 levers. The first one, can we go back, please? Just a quick comment on what are those 3 levers. The first one is the energy efficiency, which is like just finding all those opportunities that you can have on the energy usage. For example, we've retrofitted a ton of HVAC units, all the LED lighting that is used on the Huntington facilities. We do have a very substantial submetering system that gives us real-time data on our higher energy consuming equipment. We do have some retrofit of, for example, washing operations in lieu of much more eco-friendly technologies like, I don't know, blasting or things like that, right? The second prong of the lever approach is the renewable on-site generation. For example, in this facility, we do have the solar PV system, and then the renewable purchases, as they were mentioning on the last presentation. What we do for the additional consumption of electricity is that we do buy those high quality greenie certified RECs, so that we can offset our carbon footprint from our electricity consumption at the manufacturing sites. Can we go to the next one, please? Just a general overview of the project. We do have a pretty interesting case of, we started this discussions and planning and everything on the fourth quarter of 2019. And then everything kind of halted a little bit in the first quarter of 2020 with the COVID situation. We went back at it in August 2020 with a full-on request for project. We approached several companies. We had the top 3 bidders visited the site, comply with our operation department requirements with the purchasing, finance, legal, etc. So there was like a multi-departmental review. Then we selected our vendor in October 2020, and in November 2020, the project was presented to our KB board in Germany to get the final approvals on this project. So this was an outright purchase of $1.7 million. We expected to have some yearly savings of $140,000. In this case, with the current situation and with prices of energy going up, we are expecting to get much more savings, talking in like real dollars, right? We did took advantage of the federal tax incentive that we had last year of 26%. And one of the make or break on the financial side of a business case is if you're able to get the net metering with your utility company. We were fortunate enough to get a 1-for-1 net metering deal with our current utility provider. Can we go to the next one, please? One of the things that we have been working on, and I think it's probably one of the most important parts if you're trying to get renewable on your operations, is to really have a big pipeline with the projects and all the possibilities, so that you can have this plan and strategy that when money becomes available, you're able to be like ready to go. What we have here is our renewable project pipeline. This is kind of a living document that gets reviewed every 4 to 6 months just to keep identifying opportunities. And with all the changes that we have, it's really important to like cover all of your bases. And a little example of this is, for example, for this year, the next available option and the project that we were competing and that we sent out for our German corporate office was a rooftop solar system in our Bowling Green, Kentucky facility. However, after further inspection and after getting a little bit more details on the installation, we identified that there was some additional reinforcement of the roof, and that an additional piece of line that was tagged for a solar system, for a ground-mounted solar system portion of the array was already tagged for further expansion of the manufacturing footprint. So we weren't able to get that slide. And then for 2023, our next available location is another building that we actually have in the Huntington manufacturing campus. It's our building number 2, which is the damper manufacturing operation. So what I just wanted to show here is that we do have all of those options, and as capital becomes available, we are ready to apply for it and get it from our corporate office. Can we go to the next one, please? And then, us being like a multinational corporation, Quinones is based out of Germany. We identified that we need to have like a better form of evaluating the feasibility of the renewable projects. So basically, everything that is going on worldwide, the current circumstances are so complex and so different from what Europe is going and what we do have like in South America, Central America, up here in North America. We're currently working to produce this guideline that will consider several additional factors besides the business case and the savings that a renewable system would produce. This guideline is based on the European standard EN 17463, just the valuation of energy-related investments. And the good thing about this framework is that it provides like 3 different options to evaluate a project based on several changing circumstances. So you can kind of play with all the factors that would influence decision. You can have those 3 scenarios, from the best case scenario, the most likely, and the worst case scenario. And this was mostly because we're competing with projects from Europe, where they are paying a much higher kilowatt hour cost, and that makes a better economical decision for our company to invest on Europe PV systems, for example. So we're trying to make a good evaluation, just keep competing in order to get more renewable projects for our US-based facilities. Can we go to the next one, please? As of results, our Huntington manufacturing campus had a baseline of 9,726 CO2 tons for our baseline year of 2018. For 2021, we have reduced this number by 6%. However, our operational footprint, or our buildings, have gone from 460,000 square feet to 883,000 square feet. So basically, we have expanded by 48%, while we're still managing to get a 6% reduction without accounting for a full year of operation of the solar system. So we're really excited to get to that first year and go through our carbon calculation process. And then the other good thing about this project is, as this one, the first one that was approved by our German company, this basically spearheaded 3 additional solar projects, 3 located in Mexico and 1 additional project in Brazil. Can we go to the next one, please? Just a snapshot of what we are displaying daily on several displays that we have throughout the facility. As you can see, this was I just took it last week, so the system went online on August 20 something of last year. So we're just going to those in between 15-20 days, we're going through our first year anniversary. So we're pretty close on that 1.5 gigawatt hour goal. Can we go to the next one, please? And just how we are measuring month to month with the net metering, the contribution from the PV system, and what we're actually getting from our utility company, right? The next one, please. We also work with our utility so that they align their billing system so that we can show exactly, and we can validate the data that we're getting from our sub-metering, just to make sure that that the system is working fine. You can see that there's the days that we were able to send energy back to them. And can we go to the next one, please? Just some pictures of the additional renewable operations that we have for manufacturing sites. And the only comment that I have here is being in this for over a year now with the system, and from the day-to-day operation of the system, thankfully, we haven't had any issues. Basically, our supplier have just go and have a visual inspection of the panels. We haven't had to clean them, haven't had to do anything with them. Our facilities department hasn't had to do any repairs or anything that would cause any headaches or something. So we're pretty pleased with our system, and we're getting ready to get more when capital becomes available. So if we go to the next one, we want to thank you for your attention and have a good one.
Great, thank you, Luis. That was fascinating. Very interesting case study. So reminder to folks that you can submit your questions via slido.com, #DOE. Also, of course, we'll be providing all the email addresses for the speakers at the end of the session. So if you want to shoot them an email with your question afterwards, that's wonderful as well. So let's go on to our next speaker, Barry from the Narragansett Bay Commission. Barry, take it away.
Thank you, Clifton. I'd like to introduce you to the Narragansett Bay Commission. We're Rhode Island's largest sewer authority. We own 2 sewer plants, the Fields Point plant in Providence and the Buckland Point plant in East Providence. We use about 35 million kilowatt hours a year for sewage treatment. We have 60 different electric accounts. It's very important to us to reduce costs. That the 35 million would cost us about $5 million a year. Our electric bill would be if we purchased that all from the grid. Instead, we self-supply currently about 80% of our power using Rhode Island renewable energy incentives, which I'll discuss. I'll discuss our assets. We have a very diverse portfolio of assets, and I'll discuss the methods we use. So next slide, please. This shows our Fields Point plant. It's the largest plant in Rhode Island. Uses almost 14 million kilowatt hours a year. It installed 3 wind turbines in 2012. They offset only about a half of the plant use on average. They cost $12.8 million. That's after subsidies. They have a payback of about 10 to 15 years. They'll last about 20 years. So they'll pay for themselves within their lifetime. They got a Better Project Award in 2017 from DOE. And I'll provide more details later about these. Again, we purchased these outright. Later I'll talk about generating assets that we contract with. Next slide. This is our Buckland Point plant. Buckland Point, both our plants are pretty crowded. Buckland Point uses anaerobic digestion to manage solids generated from the treatment process. We installed a project last year there to use that biogas and generate electricity. It's a CHP system powered by an engine genset. It can offset about 1/3 of the plant load. That costs $6 million, $6.4 million, and also has a payback of about 10 to 15 years. These engines, though, last for a very long time, over 20 years. So that should pay for itself within its lifetime. So we own these 2 projects outright, but they don't bring us to 100% self-supplied power. That is our goal, to self-supply our power while saving money. We want to reduce that $5 million a year electric bill. So next slide, please. We considered these 3 options to self-supply our energy. We didn't consider buying renewable energy credits. We want to be in control of our renewable energy credits. We want to be able to sell them or retire them as we generate them. And we want to save money. So the option to buy RECs seemed to us like it would have been a guarantee just to pay more for electricity. So we undertook, the challenge to buy our own projects and contract with projects that are owned on our behalf by a third party. These are the methods that our projects use to lower our electric bills. Direct net metering, it's pretty self-explanatory. The turbines at Fields Point do that. However, be aware that we've learned that they offset only the kilowatt hour portion of the bill there. That wind doesn't always blow when our peak demand occurs during the month. So those bills we save at a rate of 11 cents per kilowatt hour. The second bullet describes what we call virtual net metering. Maybe it's better described as remote net metering. Certain entities in Rhode Island can do that. Public entities like us, colleges, universities, hospitals, municipalities. It's beneficial because we can site our generation away from our crowded plants, and we call it virtual allocate the credits over to the plant. Virtual net metering values those credits at a high rate, which is beneficial to us. And it offsets the entire bill that it's allocated to, including demand fees. So it's very beneficial. We own some virtual net meter projects, and others are owned by a third party on our behalf. We didn't consider the renewable energy growth feed-in tariff here in, excuse me, here in Rhode Island, because that requires electric customers who want to do offsite generation to sell all their power and renewable energy credits to the utility. Not something we were interested in. Like I said, we want to control 100% of our ultimately usage and RECs. So next slide, please. Okay, I can provide you with plenty of details about our portfolio of assets. Here's the Fields Point turbines. They direct net meter. At Fields Point, we own them. After they pay for themselves, their savings to us, we've calculated, is, like I said, about 11 cents per kilowatt hour on the electric bill. But their cost after they've paid for themselves is 8 cents to produce electricity. That's the electric production cost that we've estimated that they generate electricity for us at. So the difference between that 11 cents and the 8.6 cents, that's our savings. Multiply that by their 7.8 million kilowatt hours they produced in fiscal year 2020, and they're saving us, they're net saving us about $180,000 a year in 2020, and that's after they've paid for themselves. So that will make a dent in our $5 million electric bill every year, and this is just one of many assets that contribute to that. Go to the next slide, and I'll talk about another asset. Our Coventry wind turbines are very similar, actually. That we have 3 of them. They're off-site. We own them. They cost $18 million. They have payback between 10 and 15 years. After that's paid for, the cost to produce power to NBC from them is 8.3 cents. They save all the fees on our electric bills that we virtually allocate them to, and that rate is 14 cents per kilowatt hour. That's what we pay for grid electricity. These net meter remote allocations are valued at even a higher rate than the 14. They're valued at the CO6 rate, which is closer to 16 cents. So a lot of incentives there for municipalities like us to use this arrangement. And we do own this project and get all those credits. The total savings that we calculate they gave us was $486,000 in 2020. Again, that's after the asset has paid for itself. So that cost that savings includes the investment. Next slide. So the assets I talked about are owned by NBC. These next assets are contracted for. Our board gave us approval to seek 10 megawatts of contracted power. And these use the second bullet that I described in an earlier slide. They use what we call virtual net metering. Sometimes we call it a PPA contract. Both are not entirely accurate terms for what we do here. What we do is the third party that we competitively selected owns these, maintains these, and they sell us the net meter credits at a discounted rate. And I'll tell you that rate, it's 25% off of the price. So that's a good discount for us. They allow us to keep the RECs, and we sell all of our RECs for all of our assets at this time to help pay off all these investments we've made. You can go to the next slide. That array saved us almost $400,000. So you can see how these projects, they're similarly sized and have great savings that help us reduce that $5 million electric bill. This is where the PV site is located, far from our district. Our district is shown in green north on the map, and these are located far away. They supply only about half of the board approval of 10 megawatts. We learned some hard lessons along the way because we didn't get the other 5 megawatts right away. And we've learned that we need to make sure our proposers have permits in hand for all the generation and guarantees to produce the power we need. All these contracted assets have guarantees. If we're not supplied 90% of what's expected, we get reimbursed. Next slide. Here's an asset that helps fulfill the 10 megawatts. We wanted it to be solar, but it's wind. That saves us at a rate of about, well, in 2020, it was $284,000 a year. Next slide. This is our most recent contract. We get 12% of 9 megawatts of solar from North Smithfield, a nearby town. We just started getting that about a month or two ago. Next slide. I mentioned our biogas engine project that was started last June in 2021, and it ran into problems with biogas generation and biogas cleaning, where it had to stop producing power, and we're addressing those issues now to get that back online. Next slide. I only have a couple more minutes, so I want to show all of the accounts that use electricity at NBC. Our two big accounts are the plants, but there's other pump stations, and there's a master account that has actually 55 accounts in it. They total 35 million kilowatt hours a year. Next slide. These are all of our assets stacked, and it shows that last year they all produced 80% of the kilowatt hours that we used. In the upcoming years, once GDIM-1 and the biogas engine are fully online, we should be at 94% of our use being supplied by self-supply assets. Next slide. We try to have a mix of solar and wind in our supply. That helps even out the supply. Next slide. All of our assets that are contracted for or remote allocate are penalized if we exceed 100% of the kilowatts used at the target account. So it's a challenge to hit that 100% for all of our accounts all the time, and that's our goal. Next slide, last slide, I think. Yeah, Fields Point hit 100%, and then we had to lower the allocations instead of risking losing some credit value. And I think that's the last slide. Yes. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks, Barry, and to all of our panelists. I mean, this is a ton of great information. I think this webinar could have easily gone another half hour. We only have 8 minutes left. Let's jump right into Q&A. So again, you can go to slido.com, #DOE. I know some folks have already put a lot of questions in there for our panelists. Great, yes, so first off, so how should companies prioritize between all these different options, between renewables, tariff programs, VPPAs, et cetera? Who wants to jump in?
I have one comment on that, and that is that our on-site renewables helped us achieve Better Plants program goals, whereas our off-site generation did not in the past. And I hear that might change, but I can't speak for DOE. But on-site, renewables, they reduce our kilowatt hours, and in a very efficient manner. They avoid stack losses and line losses from conventional power. So, but they make less money for us.
Yeah, I would like to confirm that. So thank you, Barry, for saying that. And I can address these questions in multiple aspects. So that's really a great question. And if we need to answer that, we have actually to look for multiple factors that affect the decision when you need to choose between these. First one is the goal for the company, like how much you need to cover by fuel electricity and by when. Like that's an important one, because like generally speaking, if you need to have like an on-site generation, a photovoltaic system for a big, large company, you might not be able to cover like more than 10-20% of that electricity consumption. The other factor is the cost. So you need to keep in mind that like if you want to have an on-site, for example, you need to have a capital investment to have that on site. While in for utility tariff program and PPAs and RECs, it's just maybe a premium cost that you need to pay every year or every month. Another aspect is the applicability. So let's say like if you can have actually a solar that can cover again like whatever goal that you need, and at the same time if that on-site solar is feasible or not, because for some utility you might not be able to sell any excess generation, and or you might have a very cheap electricity prices, so the return on investment or the payback period will be like doesn't really make sense for having an on-site installation. Another thing is the time for planning and implementing. So like if you want to be involved, let's say in utility tariffs programs, usually these are, and the RECs as well, usually these are like a quick transaction. You can easily get engaged in one of these. However, for VPPAs and as well as on-site renewables, it's going to take more further steps and it might take longer just to be involved in these options. Another factor is the term of the contract. So for how many years you need to cover that portion. So usually RECs does not go for more than 4 years. I said the same for utility tariffs program. It could be for like a maximum of like 7-8 years. But if you are looking for a long-term project, the on-site and VPAs might go for 10-15 years. Last thing is the hassle with having an on-site solar system where you need to do an operating and maintenance, as well as installing that on-site and taking care of that if you are the owner.
And on our case, part of the company strategy, they set up like the first goal of at least having like 15 million kilowatt hours of self-supplied on-site renewable on the lever approach. The second or the third lever of the buying the RECs and PPAs and green tariffs and things like that. That's a little bit we don't see a lot of value on those yet. We prioritize like owning those assets and having that on-site renewable just to remove all the noise and things that could get a little bit tricky with PPAs and on the whole REC market.
Great. So how do you know that you're really getting green power if you sign up for a purchase agreement? Isn't it just a chance for regulated utilities to tack on extra wheeling charges? It sounds like this person has been a little burned before. Yeah. Any thoughts here?
Yeah, let me as well just quickly address this. So having the RECs, the Renewable Energy Certificate, is very important because in that way, like for any generated renewable electricity, each megawatt hour generated has that Renewable Energy Certificate, and these are tracked by the Renewable Energy Certificate tracking system in the United States. Like there's multiple tracking system in the United States. So you need to make sure that you have the RECs. If you own the RECs and it's claimed on your behalf, so or you claim that those RECs, then that's guaranteed 100% that you are receiving green power.
And then experience a little bit from 2020 to 2021 when we offsetted our electric consumption via RECs. 2020 we were paying around $1.50 per megawatt hour, and 2021 we ended up paying like $4. So it was a huge increase on like the open market. We're waiting to see what 2022 is gonna bring, but having those certified RECs is very, very important, and you have to do a lot of due diligence to make sure that you're getting them from, I mean, that you're not having issues with what the question is bringing up, right? So it's kind of complicated, and I think it's going to get much more expensive in the future, fortunately.
So unfortunately, it's 11:58 already. We have a few housekeeping slides, so we'll have to cut off Q&A. But we have the speaker's email addresses, so you can shoot the the questions to them directly. Let's kind of go back to our last slides, please. Great. So I want to highlight this because it's very relevant. So the Better Climate Challenge is actually having a peer exchange webinar coming out Wednesday, August 17th, 1 to 2 p.m. If you are a Better Climate Challenge or low carbon pilot partner, you can join this call. We have some great speakers. And if you're not, shoot us an email and we'll talk. So this is a very interesting, relevant webinar coming up. Next slide, please. Yeah, so, and then of course, this is also part of our ongoing Better Buildings Summer webinar series. And so we have several presentations coming up that could be very relevant to you as well through August. So visit the Solution Center to learn more and register. Next slide, please. So the very next webinar in this series is this Thursday, August 4th. It's titled, Slope the Toolbox for Planning Your Clean Energy Future. You can join for a demonstration on new 2022 features and learn how Slope can support your energy planning. Next slide, please. Progress report. So, every year DOE releases an annual report with the key findings, statistics, updates from the Better Buildings Initiative. And, there's a lot of interesting partner achievements and case studies in here. Visit the Solution Center to explore the report and learn, how we're all working together, DOE and partners, towards a more energy efficient future. Next slide. Yes, so a lot of information covered in this webinar in this short hour. Our speakers were fantastic. If you're interested in learning more about the topics discussed, click the link in the chat to download the handout. It contains itself links to resources from Better Buildings and our speakers. And finally, yes, last but not least, thank you so much to our panelists for all the great information. Here are their email addresses. We had a ton of questions in Slido that we didn't get to, but you can shoot them notes directly. Of course, we encourage you to follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, check out the Solution Center. You will all receive an email notice when today's recording, slides, or transcript are available. It's typically within a week or two. It's very fast. So with that, thank you again to our speakers, and thank you all for joining us. We are at 12 o'clock on the dot. We crammed a lot into this hour. Yeah. Thank you all.
Thank you.